The first topic, the first session for the day is on the future is now. Almost sounds like a Hollywood movie title. We have Biren Gandhi, who is the founder and CEO of Speak to IoT, and he strives to connect everything through voice for consumer and industrial IoT devices. While he was at Cisco, Biren led the company's drone program and spearheaded emerging technologies portfolio, acquiring and incubating a gamut of technologies from IoT and blockchain to AI and voice assistants. Welcome, Biren.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, and have a happy Friday, great morning. As you mentioned, it's like this is the topic which is near and dear to my heart, right? Everybody loves to know about future, everybody loves to talk about the future, right? When the time comes to deliver something about it, it's that's when we have our differences, right? Sometimes it's like not everybody's on the same page in various organizations that we work in, various institutions we are affiliated with and all that. So what we are going to do is, today we are going to take a brief overview of where things are headed, according to us, according to many other researches, and then we'll try to take a stab at where they are today as of now, and try to learn from them what we can do about it. Ultimately, it's all about action. So, as you mentioned, the brief introduction part, I'm part of a startup venture right now. It's Speak to IoT. We try to connect everything through voice, basically, especially the artificial intelligence and Amazon Alexa, Google ecosystem, along with the Internet of Things, IoT devices. So it's a trifecta of 3 different technologies which are disrupting the world as we speak. So let's take a deep dive into that. Here is a brief video we can start off with. But essentially, what is future, right? So it's a funny thing I read somewhere. It's just a feudal understanding towards ultra-random events. We try to decipher future, we try to predict it, we try to sometimes invent it, but at the end of the day, we are in it while we are creating it as we speak. So there's a lot that goes around us, and many times we have seen these type of experiences, especially when we join conference calls where video sharing is needed. People are not able to see the slides, blah blah, can you send them, download a plugin, and technology problems even this morning, right? I mean, it's like simple things, but somehow we are still not getting it right. Every single time there's some or the other reason which makes it wrong, which wastes everybody's time. And we always start with the big bold things, which is about digital transformation and digitization, all great topics. But we end up into like faxing the slides at the end of the day, right? It's like we're still not there. So that's where things are. Some parts are pretty good, some parts are challenging, some parts make us worry. But where do we all go about it here, from here? So there's our friends at Futurism, they have come more of a closer to heart, closer to home with respect to like what are the things we can expect to see in the future. So there are many other things, like some of the things already mentioned in the video, like designer babies and colonization of other planets or visiting other proximity stars and all that. But ingestible robots and like carbon breathing batteries and like super antivirals and nano robots and cheap solar power from wherever else we can get that our hands onto it. 3D printing, especially the biological organs, and augmenting the human capacity and powers and all that, right? So transhumans, getting the fusion power, so unlimited source of energy at our disposal. So all those things are all great ideas, like, and people predict they are going to be there in next 50 years. In another presentation I had mentioned like a couple of months ago here at ISACA is like set of 18 technologies which we had not even visualized just 10 years back. They are controlling our lives, right from social media to all the Instagrams of the world and the Ubers of the world and all that. So we could not envision something 10 years back, and there are 18 such things which are really controlling our lives day in and day out. So 50-year time scale seems like a little too far, but we'll try to do what we can in order to understand it, in order to work with it, in order to embrace it. There is no other choice. As this famous quote goes by Gandhi, is like, be the change you wish to see in the world. Right? Like we should be in charge of whatever changes we try to see. But the problem here is, what's the real future we wish to see? And itself is not very clear. A lot of things are happening around us, but we may not like all those things happening around us. Sometimes we don't agree with those things. Sometimes, whether we like it or not, we are dragged into it and all, like many different scenarios. So we are not really clear on what's the future, the ideal future we wish to see here. Sometimes it feels like, hey, it's in the flying taxis. Is it really in the flying taxis and ease of transportation? All the urban mobilities and the drones going in the cities inside and all that taking passengers? Or it's all this autonomous pizza delivery vehicles which are making it on the fly once you order. So by the time this autonomous truck is coming to your home, your pizza is actually getting ready, being baked as on the fly, literally on the move. Or it's in this quantum internet, as people say, it's like secure and safe and super fast, one step further from quantum computing. Or it's in the space elevators. Forget about reusable rockets and all, thanks to Elon Musk, but why can't we build just like elevators directly going up and down, right? Whenever we want, whichever way we want, in much more safer way. Is it possible? Or reverse aging process. So pretty much we have infinite lifespan. We can live as long as we want. Or, as the video also was saying, it's like designer babies. You can customize exactly like what kind of IQ you want, what kind of skin tone, and this and that, like all the features using genetic engineering and all. So, do we really wish to see that? Or we want to see these digital twins of ourselves? So, one aspect of never dying is uploading your consciousness to somewhere. Some other, like they call it cloud, but cloud is a really not so great word for the futuristic thing. So somewhere you upload your consciousness and you live forever in your thoughts, not necessarily in the same physical body. Researchers are trying to figure out like whether it's even possible. There has to be encoding and decoding systems which take in your consciousness, store it, and then on a need basis it can retrieve it and use it as well, right? So those systems, are they even possible to build today? Stephen Hawking, in his last book, which was recently published after he passed away, is the brief answers to the big questions. He has tried to cover some of the answers to all these big questions. He has, for example, denied the existence of God, scientifically that, hey, there is no God, hereby I prove it. On one extreme. On the other extreme, he has claimed that humanity has only 100 years on this planet. So all the climate change, and not just the climate change, our habits, our behaviors, our patterns, like he has analyzed a lot of different things above and beyond the climate change, and has predicted that we only have 100 years to live on this planet, max, together, collectively. So as that video was showing, it's like, oh, space colonization, is it really an inevitable option that we have to explore? We have no choice. Or we can live by some ultimate source of energy, like space power plant. So we stop polluting our planet altogether, collectively, and instead like have power plants in the space, and directly get a feed from the unlimited energy of the sun. So is it doable? Is that the future we want to see? Or is it in this hyper-connected world of this whole IoT, Internet of Things, where they say it's more than 50 billion devices are going to be connected over the internet and with one another by 2020, and that is still 99.4% of the devices not connected. Even if 50 million devices are connected, it's 0.6% of the possibility. Is that the future do we want to see? But the downside is, with the connectivity, with this IoT, there comes the hacking problems as well. So nobody wishes to see, but we have to deal with those extreme hacking problems and accelerated growth in those cat and mouse games as well between hackers and authorities. And some of the things we obviously remember, the Mirai botnet in October 2016, the classic and the biggest hack on all the IoT devices, security cams and the routers, and I mean, this audience knows pretty well, like default login and password, like very, very fundamental thing of living in any enterprise and consumer setup, gives birth to the super duper hacking that took place. Not only that, like some simple websites passing in clear text, login, password information, just relaying out for internet to capture. So it was interesting to see that the word Mirai itself in Japanese language, it means the future. So people are thinking about future and hacking, or we can see the other, the cardiac devices from St. Jude Medical, now part of Abbott Lab, and all the TrendNet devices and the Jeep hacking, car hacking. So we have seen a lot of those things take place in the last 2-3 years. And more recently, this big hack news came out, which both Apple and Amazon have vehemently denied. But Bloomberg is still sticking to the story that the Chinese spies, they modified all the supply chain and worked with hacked the motherboards themselves, which were going into all the cloud servers of Amazon and Apple and 30 other companies in the US. And look at the graphic, how tiny that chip is. We can't even see with naked eye unless that circle is helping us, like where it's located, right? So, do we want to see a future like that? Do we want to envision ourselves living, breathing happily in a future like that? But whether we like it or not, it's really not in the future because it's all already done. It's not out there for us to even witness that it's happened. It is happening. The future is indeed now. We are witnessing every single day as it's unfolding itself. Because if we see like how the technology is advancing, I mean, just look at the sheer number of years it took for each of this technology to reach 50 million users, right? I mean, airline industry started on one extreme, or it took 68 years for 50 million people to start using it. And if you come down scale every year after year, decade after decade, and then in more recent years, all the YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat, and if you ask the younger generation, we will know that how exactly, like less than a couple of years time frame, most of these technologies are accumulating 50 million active users of those technologies, which used to be decades in the past, is now happening in just mere years or sometimes months as well, as we see. On the computation side as well, we have come a long way. This ENIAC machine of 1946, right? It had 5,000 operations per second and built with a cost of 5.5 million US dollars in those days, like the most powerful general purpose computer back in the days. But if you consider and compare it with the day-to-day average greeting card which you get in regular retail stores for like a couple of bucks, these are like 800 times faster. And if you have to build an ENIAC with the same capability of this card, it will take $4.4 billion instead of 5.5 million. Right? So almost like 1,000-fold increase in the cost of today. So that's how far the technology has come on the computation side. The storage side is the same thing. If you look at like what are the storage densities and secure storage mechanisms of tomorrow, like DNA strands, they offer like one very powerful storage, very compact. So 215 petabytes per gram of DNA can be stored. So that means in less than like 1/4 of this room, actually the entire world's data, including all the YouTube videos, every single bit which is generated so far can be stored in less than one room size, right? That's the, I mean, it's not cost effective today, but the technology is there and constant research is going on. In fact, recently Microsoft researchers, they published random retrieval of this DNA stored data as well, just a few months back. So things are happening. So compute and storage and network side also, the quantum internet, quantum computers everybody knows, but the quantum internet is considered like super fast, obviously, and super secure. The reason is there is no transmission that takes place. So whoever knows quantum physics knows a little bit. I mean, I had to read a lot actually before even understanding the technology. Is there something called quantum entanglement? So the cloning of the photons, one photon behave in certain way here, the other photon, the clone of it virtually, other part of the world can replicate those exact same behaviors. So there is no physical medium that is connecting them, but they are cloning each other's behavior. So instead of transmitting the information in the future, they are saying, hey, one photon will behave this way, other photon will get the information right away. There is nothing in between to hack. So they are calling the quantum internet as unhackable internet. And there are trials as we speak are being run in Chicago at the Fermi Lab and 2 other labs in the same area about 50 miles of distance. So they are actually replicating the quantum internet, and they envision that it is going to be the backbone of this entire internet infrastructure in a few decades time frame. Everybody has heard about the Bitcoin and blockchain mostly, but how it's disintermediating a lot of governments and a lot of single entities, the control centers of the world, including banks and supply chains and logistics organizations. This distributed ledger, distributed trust in an inherently trustless environment. That's like really powerful. At least like 10,000 different companies, startups, working on blockchain technology in some shape or form to change the world as we speak, right? So it is happening, and a couple of days back, Bitcoin hit its 10-year anniversary, by the way. So, and it's falling in value in terms of dollar value as we speak. It had a peak of some $20,000 US for one Bitcoin in December of 2017, and now it's around $6,000 it's trading at. So, but it's like one Bitcoin is 6,000. So some people do see the value, and that's the power of this distributed trust-based technologies. In augmented reality, virtual reality, also like things are way closer than we believe or we would like to believe. It's like sometimes we are in denial, but FDA recently approved this Microsoft HoloLens technology for actual surgical usage. So, and whoever knows FDA, we know like how difficult it is to get any approval, right? I mean, it has to be a super secure, reliable, trustworthy system before it approves, and for the right reasons. And same thing with the FAA on the flying things and FCC on the communication things. So all these agencies exist for a reason, for providing safe and secure environment. The FDA approval of this augmented reality technology means a big deal for the maturity of the technology. And on the biotech side, we are familiar with the CRISPR technology, the gene editing tool, which people are saying you can play God with that. Actually, you can manipulate human beings and all, the designer babies part. But first official human trials of this technology recently launched, just last month. So they are actually starting to cure certain kind of cancers and some genetic material, but in wrong hands, this technology, if it falls, it can really create disasters. And that's going to be really a challenging part. Some of you might have read the news about the baby mice being born to 2 moms. So recently they experimented that whether mammals can be born without a dad and a mom. They experimented with a dual dad also, but that baby mice could not survive before 48 hours. They died in 48 hours. But with 2 moms, they are surviving and healthy. So with future of genetics, like things are going to get really weird and different from what we're used to see. The extinction of passenger pigeons is another way. We have seen Jurassic Park movies and DNAs, and like from reverse engineering from the DNA, you are creating dinosaurs. Well, it's happening actually with pigeons. So they are finding the DNA of this now extinct passenger pigeons more than 100 years back, and they are going back and giving life to this passenger pigeons today as we speak. And technology exists, things are in motion for that to happen. It's happening as we speak. The longevity escape velocity, right? I mean, the traditional term for the escape velocity in this context is if we are living 1 year, we are creating enough technology in that 1 year to extend our lifespan by more than 1 year. So every year we live, basically we are able to extend our life by more than a year. So technically we are net positive. That's what they call it, escape velocity in longevity. So in theory, you can live forever, either in the physical body or in some form of conscious uploading mechanism or something. But you can live forever, and they are thinking that, hey, whether it's good or bad, there are ethical and moral choices and preferences, but we're not going into the details of those. But from a technology perspective, from an ecosystem perspective, things are happening around those lines. We're thinking about the power plants in the space, but you might have seen the announcement by China that they are actually extending artificial moon for solving the lighting problems in the city of Chengdu. So the artificial moon is actually an illuminating satellite that they're going to launch in space. And that is going to be 8 times brighter than the regular moon and is going to provide the nighttime lighting over an entire city, solving the electricity consumption problem. And it's going to save them millions of dollars of electricity bills. So it is happening, and they're planning to launch actually many more. So these artificial moons, if we see in the sky, they are there for a purpose. On the robotic side as well, we have seen a lot of advancement in recent times, from soldering robots from very high precision and accuracy all the way to surgical robots and even cobots, which are working collaborative robots, working with humans side by side and providing a super precision way of doing surgical procedures, right? So those things are happening as we speak. This modular robots, right, in the Cornell University. So these robots can self-assemble and self-organize based on the task at hand. So what we are seeing in this animated video here is there's a narrow opening where the robot's job is to fetch something from that opening. And it's trying to reorganize and reconfigure itself for doing the job at hand, all on its own, right? Using fully autonomous, whether you call it intelligence system or algorithms or whatever that is. In another closer to home, Stanford University, they have created this something called Flight Pro Tugs. It's like awkward name. It's a tongue twister. But it is, it's a collection of drones with winches and all, so they are able to move weights 40 times more than their own self-weight, which is unheard of. In any aviation kind of thing, like if you can achieve twice the payload in your own weight, it's an achievement, it's a remarkable thing in an efficient way. But they have learned this from this biomimicry, from geckos and how the natural organisms try to achieve those things and try to replicate those behaviors into this autonomous robotic systems to build and make something which is never heard of before. And how can we forget about all the soft robots or chatbots and the RPA, the new category which has created in recent times, the robotic process automation, so all the automation of the workflows and processes. And another thing is, can we have like a human brain-to-brain conversation similar to the quantum internet? Can people transmit and receive information directly from the brain? We used to call that telepathy. It was more of a non-real term, but more recently the MIT Technology Review highlighted like they were able to create the first brain net, they called it, the first social network of human brains connected. So 3 people were able to coordinate their thoughts into playing a game of Tetris completely without any other way, physically in a different location. So they were communicating purely from their brain waves, right? And we have heard about this AlphaGo AI system. It's an old news, but it's like it's a self-learning system of playing a game of Go. And within like just 40 days, like from 3 days, it was able to create its own first version. 21 days is like the mastery, which was defeating all the champions, and in 40 days, it's like undefeatable. So that's the level of self-learning intelligence or self-learning algorithms we have come to. And on the human interaction side, voice is also making strides as the new touch. So right now we are required to touch and feel the devices like the mobile apps and other the glossy displays that we are used to. But voice is considered much more natural and intuitive and much more efficient also from a bandwidth perspective. It can provide like, no matter how fast a typist you are, generally like valid information is about 40 to 50 words per minute. But with voice you can communicate up to 150 words per minute to any subsystem, while your eyes and hands and ears are preoccupied into other critical tasks. So it provides an additional channel on top of what you already have. So it's very efficient and natural and intuitive. And obviously the technology has reached such a phase where it's able to recognize the natural languages much more easily, clearly, with many different accents and many different terminologies, many different even locales and all that. So those things are happening as we speak, and just a proof of a very simple one is like smart speakers, Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant and all the variants of that. They have reached more than 23% of US households as we speak. So roughly like 1/4 of the US adult population has something, and they are counterpart of your mobile apps. So whether you use a standalone smart speaker or a smart speaker corresponding app in your mobile phone doesn't matter, but what you're doing is actually you're utilizing voice as a human computer interface. Voice to access the internet, voice to get the services, voice to make things work in our day-to-day lives, even in the enterprise setup, sometimes in the industrial setup, and obviously on the personal setup level. We have seen this Google Duplex demo also, the video where the CEO announced it's like Google Duplex autonomously making an appointment to a barber shop or making a reservation or trying to make a reservation at a restaurant and all that, all autonomously learning from the AI. But the whole AI thing, it's not really new if we look at it, right? I mean, we have seen these factory robots, intelligent robots doing assembly jobs and obviously loss of human jobs as a result. These warehouse robots entirely operating huge warehouses on their own, the credit card fraud detection, and many other companies, they have their own things, right? It's like, have you seen this movie? You might like that. People who have purchased X have been purchased by Y. So it started with the traditional analytics, then moved on to machine learning. Then more and more AI is actually coming into those predictive systems. And in today's news, there was an announcement like Google is actually aware of what you're going to do next summer. So if it has that much of information power over our lives, it can predict quite accurately based on our history that what we're going to do in the future. So things are actually moving from a hand-based system to the head-based systems. Previously it was all the blue-collar jobs, then the white-collar jobs, and then slowly moving to the heart-based soft skills. And we might believe or start believing that, hey, as the job market is shifting towards more of a heart-based jobs, more of an arts, right? And in the STEMs, we have like art and language and music, the soft skills which are really the ownership of humans at this point. We might have to think again, because you might have seen the news of this I Am AI, the very first music album created by an AI composer and producer, and it has been published. It was last year, actually, not even this year. More than 1 year ago it was published. More recently, they had published a very first novel written by AI on its own, completely, like authored by an AI algorithm. And this is the first painting by AI, which was auctioned by famous auction house Christie's as well. And more recently, AI has been painting AI also, right? It's not a self-portrait, it's painting. So there are these soft skills which are no longer the authority of human race. Algorithms are actually penetrating those areas as we speak. We are not immune to that. And anecdotally, if we see like that has been the trend. I mean, the state of AI, like very first time the chess player Kasparov, when he was beaten by IBM's Deep Blue machine in 1996, then this Jeopardy and poker playing AI where they are like systems are bluffing as well to a certain degree, and they are making decisions based on the partial information, like not the fully visible information. So those things are happening, and debate is like the whole new gamut of like where AI systems can contribute and participate. So those things are happening, and no wonder why Elon Musk and a lot of people are thinking that, hey, is AI really an existential threat for humanity? Is the singularity closer than we think? Are all these advances are going to be harmful to us than helpful to us in the long run? Like what's going to happen, right? I mean, fortunately, things are not as bad as they look on the surface, because a very recent article, even though all the greatness of AI, the Deep Blue machine and AlphaGo beating machines, so the DeepMind acquisition of Google, somebody had interviewed that team after they defeated all the Go game champions in the world. The size of the board was like 19 by 19. So they asked, the interviewer asked, like, what if the size of the board was like 29 by 29 instead? And then the response from the DeepMind team was like really more realistic and pragmatic, that even if the size of the board changes by a single square, forget about adding those 10 by 10. Even if the size of the board changes by a single square, that AI system has no chance to even play against humans. It's simply dumb in that sense. Some other guy announced that even to identify like some cat pictures, the AI systems, they consume the energy of a small town. So it's costly to run those servers. It's not an easy thing. It also requires like massive amounts of data for the training set and all, which only a handful of companies have access to today. So it's not like very generalized in that sense either. So things are going to take time before they can pick it up. And above that, there are always going to be like morals and ethical issues. So MIT Technology Review recently conducted a survey. If an autonomous car has to hit one or the other, whether a baby crossing the road or an old person crossing the road, what should the AI decide, right? There is no escape route, for example. So what is like the morals and ethics decision in this case? And they presented this problem to many different countries, audience from different countries and different cultures. And surprisingly, their answers came out like they were very specific to those cultures. So everybody, for example, in the capitalistic economics, Western economics, they said, hey, kill the grandma, save the baby. Not a problem. However, the Eastern cultures, like a lot of people in Japan, and China, and Taiwan, India, what they say is, oh no, save the grandma. She has invested in her entire life. So maybe she needs to reap the benefits of her entire life. The infant is like hasn't started the life yet, so it's okay, right? So it's a moral dilemma, and nobody's right, nobody's wrong. But when AI system starts to make a decision, how do you compare that with human? So Gary Kasparov said, like, hey, even though I was beaten by a chess-playing computer, I would not call it intelligence of any kind. It's just machines. They are great at one kind of job, which is algorithms. There's lots of data, and they can execute that job super well. But that is not intelligence. Intelligence has much broader meaning. It has a broader context, a lot of emotions, a lot of this critical decision-making processes involved. There's no clear answers in many scenarios. So the algorithms cannot decide for themselves like what should be the right decision, because it's very, very subjective. It's not easy. So if we ask that, hey, if there is a king cobra, the poisonous and the longest snake in the world, hiding in our house, is that piece of information good to have or not so good to have? What do you think? Is it better to have that information, that hey, there is a king cobra hidden in my house, or not to have that information? It's better to have that information, so at least you can deal with it. Cobra may be there, you don't know, but it's better to at least be aware of that information. And same thing goes for AI and all other technological advancements. It's better to be aware of them, so that at least we can embrace them, we can deal with them, we can address those things individually at least, if not as a community together, but at least we can do something about it. We can address those concerns. So some people, it's a very famous quote, it says best way to predict the future is to obviously create it, invent it, whatever. So what we are doing right now is actually, whether we believe it or not, whether we realize it or not, we are actually creating that future ourselves in bits and pieces, collectively. It's not like somebody else is creating and we are having to deal with those things. But that future is being created right now, right? So a lot of like news outlets might say that, hey, the future is here and now and it's happening and all. This is fake, by the way. It's not like happening. It's not that, no live Silicon Valley thing. But at the end of the day, the question comes is like, hey, what next? If we are ourselves creating this future, which we may or may not like it, which in some cases we may appreciate the convenience and all the things, the goodies that come with that. In other cases, we may not agree with all that decision-making process. But then, what next? How can we deal with it? And that requires this vision. It's like seeing what is not obvious to everybody's minds. Just one example, right? I mean, we have seen this whole Internet of Things proliferation that, hey, these many devices and 50 billion by 2020, it's going to fundamentally change, and the trillions of market value and lots of things. But if we dive deeper, beyond what's visible, right, what's noise, if we go one level deeper, why does it matter? Why does it exist in the first place? Because it solves one of these three problems. It affects the top line, increases the revenue, generates the new revenue streams, new growth opportunities to the companies, and makes business sense. Yes, so that's why it's happening. So that's one reason for its existence. Another reason is obviously it affects the bottom line. More productivity gains, more efficiencies and all that, it cuts the cost, right? So it's the bottom line, so it makes sense. The third reason, it improves the customer or stakeholder engagement, experiences, right? Instead of having those 5 clicks, 10 clicks before, now you are able to speak to something and get things done. Instead of waiting for the taxi and calling and all, now you have the app. You can get Uber or Lyft at your doorstep. So it's a convenience, so stakeholder experience. So it has to affect this one of these three things in order to make any viable technological shift or disruption happen. And that has been happening all around us. And in fact, the human race, the human brain is super powerful to decipher all those things under the hood. It's a very powerful quote about Michio Kaku, the futurist. I had to think again, like when I read it for the first time, it's like, okay, sitting on the shoulders, it's like the most complicated object found in the universe. Wow, that's like a profound statement. We are all blessed with this super complicated, super powerful object, which is our own brain. The human brain has this capacity to discover new things, to make new futures that we are comfortable with, that are in greater good and all that. But as Einstein said, the biggest point is that curiosity. It's important not to stop questioning. Always keep on, have that inquisitiveness on for whatever field we are in, whatever we are trying to do, because that's the reason why human race is making all the advancement and also finding the solutions of some of the problematic things, right? But many times our energy is spoiled in fixing the past instead of building the new things. We are trying to fight the past so hard, we are trying to fight the status quo so hard that we forget about we need to build something new, we need to keep moving. So this is one of my favorite as well. When the GDPR regulations came out for the first time, I said, wow, these are new regulations, they are fundamentally going to change how we get around them, right? So people are still putting their creative energies into figuring out ways to get around something instead of like understanding what's the right reason for them and how we can embrace those things moving forward. Because at the end of the day, it's like if we are doing same old thinking, we are going to get the same old results, which are going to fuel again the same old thinking, and the cycle continues. We have to break that cycle somewhere in order to move beyond those what's happening in the past. So if we keep doing what we have been doing, we'll keep getting what we have been getting. I mean, it's as simple as it gets. So sometimes it's a matter of perspective, right? So as you can see, like a lot of great cars, vintage cars in this picture, but in reality, they are there. They are tiny toy cars actually. So go back, like if they might appear like, oh wow, these are the cars and the picture and the house, but in reality, they are just the toy cars, right? Same thing, some of you might have seen this other picture as well, the camels. But what appears as camels is actually camels' shadows. The actual camels are not even directly visible. The shot is taken right above at the 90 degree. So what appears to be the camels is like not the camels in reality, but it's different. So sometimes you might have to shift our perspective. And many of you might have seen this puzzle as well. Okay, which parking slot the car is occupying. If you try to look from the same perspective, it's very difficult to get the answer right. But if you shift your perspective, you just flip the picture upside down. It makes it, aha, it's obvious. I mean, there's no big deal, right? Suddenly things start very clear. Things appear very, very clear, very simple. Same thing goes with the future as well. That if we change our perspective a little bit, things appear in completely different light. they appear and present themselves in a totally different context. Because if we think big, at the end of the game, right, it's all going into the same box. I mean, it's no matter like how we talk about longevity and uploading our consciousness and all that, and there are lots of unknowns before happening, right? And they're waiting to happen before that those achievements really play out in the real life. So with those perspectives, we should ask ourselves like only one basic question. I mean, that's, I call it perspective question. Like when everything plays out, right? When we are all like at the end of our life or whatever, the physical life or conscious life or whatever, and if we look back on like, hey, what just happened? And we are reviewing our entire life, the whole humanity will be asking a very simple question, like what exactly did we do for the greater good? How did we help the humanity? Because nothing else really matters in the big scheme of things. Yes, individuals here and there, they might get some personal gain in the short term. But so what? What's the big deal? Right? Looking at some of the NASA pictures, like there's a very interesting 7-picture post by NASA on Flickr. They say the pictures that make you feel really small and humble in the universe. And one of the pictures, it says like there are more number of suns in the universe than all the sand grains on all the beaches on the earth combined. Right? So our sun is just one, and that takes 99.8% of the mass in our solar system. 0.2% is all the planets combined together. Everything else is 0.2% in the solar system, including Earth and Jupiter and Moon and whoever wants. 99.8% is solar mass. That's just one sun. And if there are billions and trillions and quadrillions of suns in the galaxy, I mean, who are we in the big scheme of things at the end of the day? So we better be humble, we better be inquisitive, we better be helpful to the rest of the humanity, because that's what matters in the end. So the future around us is shifting fast. It's changing. The changes are taking place. The future is indeed now, but let's make it count. Let's work towards making it better in whatever little effort we can make, whatever contribution we can make from our individual side or collective side, because that's what matters in the end. Thank you. Sure.
When you're talking about the quantum internet, where this changes over here, not just this room, but I did it here, over here, and so that can be hacked. Is there a way to get into one consciousness to manipulate that, and then it could be hacked, or is that not possible?
It is possible. I mean, we collectively, I mean, after seeing all those things, what have happened so far, we should not be using the word impossible in any context, right? So, everything is possible. It just may not seem possible just yet. It may be a matter of time, because there's a constant learning going on in various things. So what you're saying is right. There are like even similar to the Jeep case, right? That scenario, right? People are able to hack into the canvas, right? So there is some operating system around a functioning algorithm or a functioning entity in any case. So if you can tap into that, yes, you can practically hack. So, but what they're saying is the chain, the physical transportation part of it, people cannot tap into the wire and then hack. So from that perspective, it's unhackable as of now, but you never know. Yeah. Any other questions? Nanotechnology? Oh yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, this is by no means it's a complete list. It's just like we can go on, and there could be entire conferences around that as well. So, one of the things, for example, two things actually. One was like Nano Robots and medication, ingestible medications. They are trying to make as if like replace our immune system using those Nano Robots. So right now those are ingestible pills that exist today. They can go in and basically scan your body and relay the photographs outside. I mean, that exists today. But this is even beyond. It's more of a replacing the white cells and mechanism on one side, basically fixing our immune system, or not fixing, more of augmenting our immune system with technology. So that's one angle. And other part was the space elevators that we see. That's also not in the fantasy land anymore. China recently announced a nano material which is 1.6 grams of weight, and a single thread can lift the weight of 160 elephants. 160 elephants, and that itself weighs just 1.6 grams. And that they're planning to use in building the space elevator actually, because you need super lightweight material but super strong. So nanotechnology is definitely playing on multiple fronts in those scenarios.
So thank you, Biren.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for